completely forgot to offer you some fudge. My sister made it for me. Oh, and it's so good. It's gonna blow your mind.
Hello survivors and welcome to Survivor's Guild, the only channel that determines your odds of surviving 2017's killer party game, Game of Death, as requested by Thou Art Dead / Jalen Woken on Instagram, so stay tuned till the end for your survival stats. I'm your sharp-dressed slasher turned board game champion, GhostFake. Now I hope you like ruining your entire life for just one game, cause this movie is getting spoiled. Game of Death, written by Edouard Bond, Philip Kalin-Hajdu, Sebastien Landry, and Laurence Morais-Lagace, and directed by Sebastien Landry and Laurence Morais-Lagace, starring Sam Earle, Victoria Diamond, Emelia Hellman, Erniel Baez, Catherine Saindon, Thomas Vallieres, and Nick Serino. Game of Death is about 6 friends and their drug dealer who sit down for a thrilling round of the Game of Death, only to find out that it's way more literal than they assumed. Game of Death is currently streaming on Shudder and well worth a watch before you watch me spoil this movie. We open up to Beth telling her brother Tom to come to the party for reasons.
Hey bro, Ashley wants to you. Get the over here.
And after he rubs one out, he lets them know that he'll be over soon.
Tell Ashley I'm flattered. I'm coming soon.
We then get introduced to Marianne, Ashley, Kenny, Marianne's boyfriend, and Matt, Ashley's boyfriend, as they hang out playing Marry Kill and get drunk and high. Beth tells Matt that his girlfriend wants to screw her brother, and Matt foreshadows.
Your girlfriend wants to my brother.
I don't care. You're the only one who can get him off anyways.
I only mention this because it comes back later. Let's just say that Beth and Tom want to make some killer hillbillies, if you know what I mean. They call their drug and pizza dealer, Tyler, and he delivers their order. Beth notices a creepy neighbor who seriously loves his hand. Like really, really loves his hand. And while Ashley and Matt lurk around Matt's house, Matt asks Ashley to sit on his face. Why the hell would it? Oh. Meanwhile, the others play a game of spin the bottle, lap dance edition.
That person must give a lap dance to whomever they choose.
Wherein the person the bottle lands on must give a lap dance to the person of their choosing. And spoiler, the bottle lands on Beth and she chooses to give a lap dance to Tom. Why the hell would... Oh, gross. Anyway, in the throes of passion, Ashley notices a board game in the closet called the Game of Death. Well, that sounds like a delightful little romp. And the group sits down to play around. Matt reads the instructions that are written by a kindergartner that state, with the clock ticking, is life worth living? Make a choice, you or I. Without decision, one will die. In this quest, some are left behind. This game will blow your mind, and that once they press the start button, the game will give them a number, and that's how many people have to die in order for the game to end. Their first instruction is for each player to put a finger on one of the skulls and press play. When they do, the game board pokes their finger and takes some blood, before giving them the number 24, and Beth further reads the instructions saying if no one is killed when the timer runs out, the game will kill a player, and then the game ends either when the number gets to 0 or when all the players are dead, and also telling them that there is no quitting and that the only way out is death. The group is unsure how to proceed, believing that they are missing dice or cards or something, before ultimately deciding just to go drink some more. Tyler, Kenny, Ashley, Marianne, and Matt go out to the pool for some beer bong action, when Matt complains that his head hurts, and he explodes it to alleviate the pressure, alleviating Matt into the meat bank at deposit number 1, and the game counter drops to 23.
You hear that?
The group runs inside the house and they all drop to the floor, believing that somebody sniped him. They warn Beth and Tom that Matt got his head blown off, and Marianne calls the police. Tom grabs out the gun that he brought, having anticipated playing a game involving death, either Game of Death or Monopoly. And they hear a knock at the door, and Tom goes to see who it is. And it turns out to be the creepy neighbor who really, really likes his hand. They interrogate him about why he is there, and he tells them that he heard screaming and came over to see if everything was okay. Well, that story checks out. But just then, Kenny's head starts hurting, and he too alleviates the pressure by exploding it a little. Did you learn nothing from Matt? Killed Kenny, you bastards, at deposit number 2 into the meat bank. Tom, remembering the rules of the game, and not the one that you just lost, checks the counter and sees it drop a number and tells everyone that the game is real. Tyler tries to destroy the game, but breaks a perfectly good baseball bat in the process. Tom then turns his gun back on the neighbor and fully embraces the rules of the game.
I'm not playing God. I'm playing the Game of Death.
Ruining a perfectly good, albeit creepy, neighbor in the process, force dealing him into the game, into the meat bank at deposit number 3. They all jump into Tyler's pizza car and speed down the road. Tom pitches that they only need to kill 21 more people to survive. He's definitely a glass half full type of guy, while everybody else is pretty glass half empty about it. Tyler slams on the brakes when a jogger gets in front of his vehicle, prompting Tom to point the gun at his head and force him to run the dude over. and then back over him for good measure. But when they get out of the car, they find that the jogger just isn't dying fast enough. Come on, die faster! But when he doesn't die faster, Tom helps him cross over by stomping his head in at deposit number 4 into the meat bank. By the way, the effects in this movie were pulled off by Alchemy 24 and Remy Couture, and they did a fantastic job. The gore in this movie is definitely on point. But as they marvel at the roadkill, another jogger, also known as a witness, jogs onto the scene. So Tom shoots her and follows her blood trail to put her down for good, tying up loose ends into the meat bank at deposit number 5. And the game's counter drops down to 19. Tom drags the roadkill into the bushes, and the group face a divide when Tom and Beth want to continue their spree, so that their love may blossom. Oh, yuck. While Tyler and Ashley want to figure out another way, as they don't want to keep killing, while Mary Ann sits in the back of the car, in shock. Marilyn, a forest ranger, pulls up to the bloody bunch and asks if they are okay. Ashley tells her that they hit a deer.
Yeah. We hit a deer.
But the group gets uncomfortable when she won't stop talking. But Marilyn knows that there's something suspicious about this group, so she keeps the conversation going and offers them some fudge. But Mary Ann can't take anymore, and her head explodes into the meat bank at deposit number 6.
It's gonna blow your mind. Hey, what happened?
Tom threatens to shoot Ashley just as a diversion so that he and Beth can get away. And he and Beth climb into the pizza car and he lets Ashley go. And Marilyn asks Tyler and Ashley for answers. Sometime later, Tyler's head starts hurting and Ashley makes an executive decision to dispatch Marilyn so that Tyler can survive a little longer, dispatching Marilyn into the meat bank at deposit number 7. Before Ashley comes to the realization that the best way for the game to end is for the players to die.
We have to stop them. We have to end this. We all have to die.
Well, I guess you couldn't have figured that out before you killed Marilyn. So she grabs Marilyn's shotgun and her and Tyler take the vehicle to go stop Tom and Beth. Tyler calls Pizza Hut and has them track his car so that they can follow it, while Tom and Beth decide to head over to a hospital to help some terminally ill folks cross over. They arrive at the hospital and take a short break for a bit to make out. Gross. Before they head into the hospital and start making deposits, starting with deposit number 8, deposit number 9, deposits 10, 11, and 12. And then we get a fun animation, probably because they had a tight budget, of Tom and Beth going on a rampage through the hospital, making deposits 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, and 21. It's hard to know exactly which ones of these are real, but what we do know is that when they are done, the game's counter is down to 3. Meanwhile, Ashley and Tyler have arrived at the hospital, and they find a nurse and tell her to call the police, while they head to try to stop Tom and Beth. Beth runs into a little sick girl named Sam, but before she can pull the trigger, Tyler and Ashley show up and Ashley draws first, and shoots a slug right into Beth's head, landing her into the meat bank at deposit number 22. They hide Sam, knowing that Tom is going to be super pissed when he finds out that they killed his sister lover. And boy is he. Tyler and Ashley confront Tom, and he and Tyler get into a fist fight, wherein Tyler digs his thumbs into Tom's neck, thumb-warring Tom into the meat bank at deposit number 23, taking the game's counter down to 1. But then Ashley goes full nihilist.
We think we're so significant that our lives matter. We mean nothing.
Telling us that everything is meaningless and that no matter what you do to make the world better, the ultimate goal is death, which is hilarious and consistent, before she lifts the shotgun and drops Tyler into the meat bank at deposit number 24. The game ends, and thanks Ashley for playing. Just as the police arrive and take her away. Cut to sometime later at the police station as they are having their Christmas party and giving out evidence items as gifts, when one of them receives the game of death and asks if anyone wants to play around.
Anybody want to play?
And the movie ends. Now let's take a look at our main characters and the death that surrounds them to determine your odds of surviving this movie. We start off our meat bank deposits with Matt getting lightheaded at deposit number 1, Kenny alleviating a headache at deposit number 2, the neighbor tries to help at deposit number 3, this jogger speed bumps in at deposit number 4, this lady jogger begs in at deposit number 5, Marianne head explodes in at deposit number 6, Marilyn dies for no reason at deposit number 7, we get the hospital deposits coming in at deposits 8 through 21, Beth headshots in at deposit number 22, Tom thumb wars in at deposit number 23, and we wrap up our meat bank deposits with Tyler shotgunning in at deposit number 24 into the meat bank. Now let's take a look at our survivors. We've got Ashley, which means that out of a total of 25 characters, only 1 survives, giving you a 4% chance of surviving this movie. Given those odds, how many people have to die before you go full nihilist? Let me know in the comments below. And if this is your first time on my channel, go ahead and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And a huge thanks to my patrons for their continued support. Alrighty guys, as always, thanks, and don't die.